focus to what's taking place at the Supreme Court. You would remember that there was a plea seeking directions for the president to inaugurate the new parliament building, even as the opposition has decided to boycott the inauguration. We are now understanding the plea seeking directions to inaugurate the new parliament building by the president instead of the prime minister. That in fact has begun at the Supreme Court. Let's also now bring in our legal correspondent Ananya Bhatnagar, who's been tracking these developments. Ananya, politically speaking, we're already seeing the opposition continue to mount pressure, asking why is the president not inaugurating the new parliament building? Talk to us about what's happening at the Supreme Court, who would really file this plea, and what are the details that you're picking up? Okay, we seem to have lost that connection with my colleague Ananya Bhatnagar, but we'll try and get him back. We're understanding the hearing has begun at the Supreme Court. It's a two-judge bench that is in fact going to hear this plea. Remember, this plea that has been filed in the Supreme Court is essentially asking why the Prime Minister is inaugurating the new Parliament building and not the President. I believe our colleague Ananya Bhatnagar is now back with us. Ananya, if you can hear us this time around, talk to us about who the petitioner are and what are they asking. And we're also understanding this is a two-judge bench that is hearing this case.
Well, this is a bench headed by Justice J.K. Maheshwari and also comprising Justice P.S. Narasimhan, who is hearing this particular petition. And clearly, in the first instance, the bench has very, very clearly and categorically clarified that it is not inclined to hear this particular petition. In fact, it also went on to say that, we are grateful, be grateful that, we are not imposing costs on you. However, the petitioner is still making its submissions before the court. He is trying to justify his locus into this particular case. And I'll read down certain portions of this particular submission that have been given out by this particular petitioner. He says that President is the head of the state. He is not, and the Prime Minister, who is the head of the executive, does not vest a right to actually inaugurate the new Parliament building, as he has no right over the Parliament building, though he is, tasked to actually frame laws. But this is not the jurisdiction where the Prime Minister should enter. But the court has very, very clearly and categorically shown as to how it does not want to interfere into this particular matter. And any moment now we can see that the court says that, we are not inclined to hear this particular matter and we are dismissing this particular petition that has been filed. So we are just waiting for the court to give out its final verdict to say that, this petition has been dismissed, because it is very, very clearly inclined to say that this particular petition shall not be entertained under Article 32. And clearly the court has said that, they are not inclined to actually look into it. Now, what had been said in this particular petition was that, the Prime Minister should not inaugurate this because the President is the head of the state and he or she shall be, and in this case, President Draupadi Murmu shall actually, in fact, go on and inaugurate the Parliament building. But the Supreme Court making clear observations, clearly saying that we know why you've brought in these matters and why you filed such petitions before us, clearly saying that, they will not be interfering into this particular matter.
So, Ananya, as of now, what you're reporting for us is the Supreme Court, in fact, is slamming the petitioner, saying you should be grateful that we are not imposing any cost. And they're also gone on to say that we actually know the reason as to why you filed such a petition. We are not inclined to entertain this petition. But just going back, for curiosity's sake, Ananya, who was the original petitioner in this case?
Well, Ridhima, this is an advocate called CRJS Sukin, but bringing you the latest first, the court has now dismissed the particular petition, clearly passed on the orders and said that we are dismissing this particular plea, is what the Supreme Court has clearly and categorically stated in its order, clearly dismissing this petition that was filed under Article 32 of, the Constitution of India, clearly saying that, this is a petition wherein there is no locus, clearly questioning the petitioner as to why has he brought such a matter before the topmost court of the country. He tried to justify this locus, but the Supreme Court very, very clearly and categorically saying that no, we are not entertaining this, and hence dismissed. So this petitioner, as I was pointing out to you, is a practicing advocate before the Supreme Court of India, clearly a petitioner in person, and has argued that, the President should inaugurate the Parliament building and not the Prime Minister of the country. But the Supreme Court clearly refusing to interfere into this matter, clearly saying that such a petition is not warranted, and clearly also saying that be grateful that we are not imposing costs on you.
So the big update that's coming in from the Supreme Court, as Ananya is pointing out, is this entire plea that was filed by the petitioner, in fact, has been rejected as far as the Supreme Court is concerned. They've dismissed as far as this plea is concerned. And they've also mentioned to the petitioner that you should be grateful that we're not imposing a cost on you. We're not going to entertain this plea. So the big update is, as far as this plea in the Supreme Court that was filed by the petitioner asking as to why the Prime Minister is inaugurating the new Parliament building and not the Prime Minister, the Supreme Court is very categorical. They have pulled up the petitioner and they've rejected and dismissed the plea as well. Quickly going back to Ananya. Ananya, what else did we hear from the top court?
Well, no kind of observation has been made by categorically by the top court, except for saying that, this petition is in fact something that should not be warranted. In fact, the Solicitor General too saying that withdrawal being allowed will give him liberty to move the High Court. These are not justiciable. The court should note it that this is not a matter that should come before the topmost court of the country. This is not a matter that should be adjudicated by the courts of law, and clearly saying that the petition shall be dismissed. The central government too, the top law officer of the central government, Mr. Tushar Mehta, the Solicitor General of India, clearly saying that this was a petition that should not be entertained by the court, and the court clearly accepting those submissions, clearly saying that the matter is now dismissed.
Now, this actually, in fact, will be a big boost as far as the centre is concerned, because one, they've been saying that all protocols are being followed. It's actually the prerogative of the Speaker, and the Speaker has invited the Prime Minister. We're only following what he's asked for. So the opposition is going to be in a tricky position now, because they were actually banking on what the verdict will be as far as the Supreme Court is concerned. Considering the fact even the Supreme Court has rejected and dismissed this plea, this is going to be a big win for the centre as well.
Well, definitely, Ridhima, we've seen how politics has played out into this particular matter, how various opposition parties are saying that, the Prime Minister is not letting the President do what is warranted for the President to do. She is the head of the state. In fact, some of the opposition parties also going on to say that this is a demeaning of the SC and ST community, and this is also a reason why, in fact, the President has not been allowed to do so, because she belongs to a particular community. But all of this falling flat with this court verdict, clearly court saying that there is nothing wrong, we are not interfering into this particular matter, and the petitions have now been turned down, a big blow to the opposition parties, because now there is a judicial order that has been passed by the topmost court of the country, clearly dismissing the request that the President should actually inaugurate it. There is nothing wrong. This was the Lok Sabha Secretariat that had to do it. The Speaker had to invite somebody, and the Speaker has invited the Prime Minister of the country to actually inaugurate the new Parliament building. Remember that this inauguration has to take place on Sunday, that is the 28th of May. And in fact, a lot of events are scheduled with regards to that. But from the courts of law, from the topmost court of the country, a vacation bench of the Supreme Court headed by Justice J.K. Maheshwari, also comprising Justice Paramadi Ghantam, S. Narasimhan, clearly dismissing these particular petitions, seeking a direction for the President to actually inaugurate this Parliament building. Ridhima.
Ananya, just going back to an overview of the kind of political war of words that we've seen, the opposition's biggest concern has been that why is the President not inaugurating this building? The centre is actually insulting the President. Just legally speaking, as to what the Constitution says, what are the protocols in a situation like this?
Well, with regards to such a thing taking place, there are no kind of a particular laws that are framed, and it is the discretion of the Speaker to actually do it. And since the Speaker is already, and the Lok Sabha Secretariat has already invited the Prime Minister to do so, there is nothing legally wrong with regards to this. In fact, we were speaking to Dr. Subramaniam Swamy in the morning with regards to this whole issue, and he also said that there is no kind of a particular law in there, and the most important thing is that the person in contention, the President of India, Shri Draupadi Murmu, has not opposed the Prime Minister inaugurating this particular building.
Yeah.
Had the President opposed this, then there would have been a different situation. But these are the opposition parties that are coming into the way, saying that, the SC/ST community is being demeaned. The President is not being allowed to do so because she belongs to a particular community. All of this falls flat because there is no law. And in fact, the custodians of the law, the topmost court of the country, has now dismissed these particular petitions.